This video is going to go through your semester exam review, and we'll just start at the beginning, go through it. You can also just check the answer key that's also posted. So when I look at this first one, we're really reviewing PEMDAS. And remember, it's parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So when I look at this first one, we want to start with our parentheses, and I want to do the multiplication inside first. So this is 36 minus parentheses 4 plus 20. Again, I still have the parentheses, so 4 plus 20 is 24. So 36 minus 24. Once you get the single number, you don't need the parentheses anymore. And we get that the answer is 12. Looking at the next one, you want to simplify the numerator and the denominator, and then go ahead and go from there. So I'm going to start with the denominator. 3 squared is 9. And I'm also going to do a step on the numerator first as well. So 2 times 3 is 6. So I'm just going to rewrite this. 6 minus 1 all over 9. And simplifying the numerator again, 6 minus 1 is 5 over 9. So the first two don't have variables, but now we get into a variable. Notice that it says simplify and not solve. You're not solving for what a variable is equal to. You're just trying to simplify the expression. So I'm going to distribute the variable. Negative 3 times m is negative 3m. And m times n is mn. So I can't combine like terms. I'm not solving. I'm simplifying. And so we can stop there. Similarly, we need to distribute. So I have 6a minus 5 plus 3 times 3 is 9. And 3 times negative a is negative 3a. I can combine like terms, so my 5 and 9 are like terms. And then I also have 6a minus 3a. So the variable always comes first. 6 minus 3 is 3a. And negative 5 plus 9 is a positive 4. Again, we're not trying to solve. We just are trying to simplify and combine like terms. The last one, we need to pay attention. This is a negative times a negative. So it's not minus, well, you could also say minus a negative, but it's really negative 1 times negative 2c. And 2 negatives make it positive. So I'm just going to rewrite this. 4c minus 6 plus 2c. And again, combining like terms, I have 4c and 2c, which is 6c minus 6. Number 2 is asking us to evaluate. Now, evaluate means simplify, like you're trying to get it down to one number or as simple as possible. Remember, when you plug things in, you want to use your parentheses to make sure that we're paying close attention to like those negative signs that we can easily miss. So the negative stays, and I'm plugging in x, which is 3, y, which is negative 1, and z, which is 2. Now remember, when they're all touching, it's multiplication. So x times y times z. So I'm just going to go in order here. Negative times 3 is negative 3 times negative 1 times 2. You can keep your parentheses if you want, but know that it's multiplication. Negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3 times 2, which is 6. So same thing here. I'm going to plug in using parentheses. Negative 1 squared minus a negative parentheses, then I'm going to plug in a -1 squared. So this is a little bit tricky. We want to do your exponents first, and there's a couple things that I want to pay attention to. 2 negatives make it positive, so I'm just going to rewrite this. -1 squared minus 1 squared. Then I can come in here. A -1 squared is -1 times -1, so that's 1. 1 squared is 1, and 1 minus 1 is 0. Looking at the next one, okay, remember these straight lines are absolute value. And absolute value means that your final answer, whatever is inside, is going to become positive. So I'm just going to go ahead, -3 times y, which is -1, minus 2 times z, which is 2. And then I'm going to simplify. So -3 and -1 is +3. -2 times 2 is -4. 3 minus 4 is -1. And the absolute value of -1 always comes out to be the positive number, which is 1. Number 3 is asking us to take word problems and write them into expressions. So -4 times the quantity, whenever you see the quantity, you want to put it in parentheses, of n plus 5. So we're going to quantity of n plus 5. So this is -4 times the quantity of n plus 5. Okay, quotient means division. So you're going to just divide these two. And that means we write them as a fraction. So 5 over x. Or you could say 5 divided by x. But realistically, we're more likely to see the fraction. Now we're solving. So notice the language changes to simplify or evaluate to now solve. So we are trying to get what does the variable equal. Looking at this first one, I need to combine like terms. They're on the same side of the equation, so we need to combine them. -3 minus 1w, or 3w minus 1w, is 2w plus 2 is equal to -4. So we combine like terms. I'm going to subtract 2. So 2w is equal to -6. And then divide both sides by 2. W is equal to -3. So similar concept here. I need to distribute on the left-hand side. So 2, and then 2 times -2 is minus 4y is equal to 4y plus 18. So just solving for y, I would add the 4y to the other side. 2 equals 8y plus 18. I would subtract 18 from both sides. And I'm just going to show my work up here. 2 minus 18 is -16 is equal to 8y. And then divide by 8. Y is equal to -2 is equal to y. Y is equal to -2. Okay, for every one of these, pay attention. You can plug in your answers and check that they work. So similar solving here, we're going to distribute on the bottom. So I have 9j plus 3 is equal to 9j plus 3. At this point, you can notice that these are the exact same. If you don't notice it there, you could keep solving and subtract 9j, and you get that 3 is equal to 3, and those are also the exact same. So this is true. And remember, when we get something that's true, we get infinite solutions. Working the other example, be careful here. This is a negative that needs to get distributed to both. So 2x minus 3 is equal to 5 minus x minus 1. Okay, it's like changing the signs. And then I need to combine like terms on this side. So 5 minus 1 needs to be combined. So I get 2x minus 3 is equal to negative x plus 4. Now solving my equation, I can add x to the other side. 3x minus 3 is equal to, these cancel, 4. I can add 3. So 3x is equal to 7. And then divide by 3. X is equal to 7 over 3. All right, when we flip the page over, we are solving absolute values. Now remember, when we solve absolute values, you get two solutions. And you have to split it into the positive and the negative to solve. So if I look at this first one, we have to isolate the absolute value, which tells me I have to look right here. It's completely by itself. There's nothing in front or behind, so I can solve. So h minus 4 is equal to 3, and then h minus 4 is equal to negative 3, and then we want to solve. So remember, we make one side negative, one side positive. And then you add 4 to both sides, so h is equal to 7. Add 4 to both sides here, and we get h is equal to 1. So looking at B, again, I need to isolate the absolute value, which means I need to move the 10. So I'm going to add 10 to both sides. And I get 3 times the absolute value of W is equal to 24. Divide by 3. So the absolute value of W is equal to 8. And then again, I can split. So one of them is positive. I get W is equal to 8. And one of them is negative. So W equals negative 8. These average questions, again, are so important. They were on your tests, quizzes, homework, probably on your exam, similar, okay? So knowing how to set this up is important. So this one talks about the average temperature in Phoenix, and you have 4 temperatures, and then this is going to be your 5th temperature. And you want to know, what is the 5th temperature going to be if you want an average of 112. So remember, to find the average, you add them all up and divide it by how many numbers there are. So I'm going to go 100 plus 121 plus 105 plus 113 plus x, that 5th temperature, divided by 5, and I want it to equal 112 degrees. And in 2 steps, I'm going to do 2 things, okay? The first is I'm going to total these just to make the numerator of my equation more simple. So when I add those up, I get 439 plus x, and then divided by 5 has to equal 112. Now, in order to undo division, I'm multiplying both sides by 5 so that these cancel. And then I'm going to show my work up here. So I'm left with 439 plus x is equal to, and then 112 times 5 is 560. And then our last step is to subtract. And you would get that you would need the 5th day to have an average of, don't know what I just did there, an average of 121 degrees. And what did I add here? Units, don't forget them, okay, especially in word problems. The next one, a state park charges $6 for admission plus $3 for parking. And then Joe paid $27. So if we think about this, $6 per person. So 6p plus $3 for parking. There's only one car, so it's not like per car. It's just a flat $3 for parking. Has to equal $27. And then we're solving. So we're subtracting 3. 6p is equal to 24. We can divide by 6, and you get that there was 4 people in the car. So number 8, a company manufactures tote bags. The company spends $1,200 each day for overhead expenses plus $9 for tote bag and materials. They sell for $25. So it says, when are they going to equal the cost versus the profit? So basically what it's saying is, when is the profit going to equal the cost? Okay, that's really important. So the profit is how much money they make. So they sell it for $25 for each tote bag. So the profit is $25 for the tote bag. And you want to know when it equals. Okay, it cost them $9 for the tote bag plus the overhead of $1,200 each day. So now we're solving this equation, and we would subtract 9t to the other side. And I get 16t is equal to 1,200. Divide by 16, and I get that their tote bags, that they'd have to sell 75 totes in order to break even every day. And then number 9, writing the inequalities. So remember, open circle is less than or greater than. And so this would be x is less than -7. These ones are equal to, so this would be x is greater than or equal to 2. Number 10. I would divide by 4, and those cancel, so I get y is less than or equal to -4. And standard form really would probably have you flip these around. So we would say y is less than or equal to -4. And then you can practice graphing. I feel like we've done this quite a bit, so I'm going to do a pretty poor job. But just to give you an idea, it's a closed circle, and it's less than, so it's to the left. In this next one, I want to undo the division, and I'm going to do it in the same step as the negative. So I'm going to multiply by -3, multiply by -3. And when you multiply by a negative, you have to flip the inequality. So the -3's cancel. X is, I'm going to flip the sign, greater than, and then we get -6 on that other side. Graphing it, okay, it's an open circle, and it's bigger than -6. In order to solve the next one, you need to distribute the negative, so 5n minus 2n plus 12 is less than 10. Combining like terms, 3n plus 12 is less than 10. Subtract 12, 3n is less than -2. Divide by 3. And n is less than -2/3. So continuing on, I'm going to add 2y to both sides in this one. I get 8y minus 7 is less than 13. Add 7. 8y is less than 20. Divide by 8. Y is less than 20/8, which we need to reduce. Okay, we can divide them both by 4. And so I get y is less than 5/2. Getting into compounding inequalities, remember, you either have an or statement or an and statement, and you have to solve all of them. So there's a 4 in the middle, and it's getting multiplied, so you're going to divide all 3 parts by 4, and you need to reduce your fractions if possible. So these are both divisible by 2, so -5/2 is less than q is less than 3. And I will practice graphing this one just to remind you. You get -5/2, +3. They're open circles, and it's a in between. In between. Looking at example F, we're going to distribute and then start to solve. So I distributed the 5, and I'm going to subtract 3b, and I get -10 is less than, -10 plus 2b is less than 2, and I'm going to add 10 to the other side. So 2b is less than 12. Divide by 2, and b is less than 6. Two more inequalities. The or statement really just has you solve them separately. They don't affect each other. So I'm going to subtract 4 to get the 3n by itself, 1 minus 4 is -3. Divide by 3, and n is greater than or equal to -1. Or, and now we're going to solve the other side. So I need to divide by -5. When you divide by a negative, you're going to flip the inequality. So n is less than -5. Now remember, when we graph an OR statement, think of ORs on a boat, -5, -1. Okay, the -5 is an open circle, and the -1 is a closed circle to the right. They're going out in opposite directions. Again, it's an AND statement, so I need to get the middle alone. So I'm going to first add 3, but I do it to all 3 parts. So this is -14 is less than or equal to 2m, which is less than 8. Now I can divide all 3 parts by 2. So -7 is less than or equal to m, which is less than 4. And again, similar to the one up top, -7, 4, closed circle for -7, open circle for 4, and it's in between. So same concept of inequalities, but we're going to write one. And all numbers that are at least 5 and at most 12. So if you read this, you're looking for the numbers in between, which means x is in between, okay? It's at most 5. So it can be 5 or at least 5 and at most 12. So it can equal those things and anything in between. Number 12, remember this is pretty recent. We do more means or less nest. We're going to get 2 different answers, 2 different number answers depending on how it looks. So if I do this first one, this is a greater than sign. So we're going to make an or statement. And remember, you keep the first one, g plus 7 is greater than or equal to 10. Or, and you make the other one negative, so g plus 7, and you flip the sign. So it's less than or equal to -10. So let me say that again. You flip the sign and make it negative. And now we just solve them. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. G is greater than or equal to 3. And if I subtract 7 from both sides, g is less than or equal to -17. Again, graphing -17 all the way to 3. They're both closed circles looking at their sign, and or statements go in opposite directions. Looking at the next one, this sign is less, and so we're going to nest, which means I put the a minus 4 in the middle, and I make the negative on the other side. The signs always face the right. And then we solve it like we did up above, where you would add 4 to all 3 parts. So I get 1 is in between a and then 7. Again, graphing this one, they're both closed circles, 1, 7, and the line, the A is in between, so we connect in between them. So number 13, Bill goes bowling. It costs $2.50 to rent shoes and $2 to bowl each game. Write a function for the cost, C, to bowl 8 games. So the cost of bowling, C of X. It's similar to F of X, the cost of bowling, or you could really just say C is equal to, they mean the same thing. Okay, the cost of bowling is $2 per game. Plus a flat $2.50 for him to rent his shoes. The next one, John is a plumber that charges $75 for a house call and $50 per hour. So the same thing, cost of coming to the house is is $50 per hour, so 50x plus a flat fee of $75 just to show up. So it's saying how much is it going to cost if he's there for 2.5 hours. So the cost at 2.5 hours is 50 times 2.5 plus 75. So the cost at 2.5 hours is equal to 125 plus 75. And you get that it would cost $200 to have the plumber come.